Jesus, I surrender all to him, my
15th of August, 1899, Volume 2. Charity orders all virtues. The Virgin Mary assumed into heaven. The Hail Mary together with Jesus. This morning, my most sweet Jesus came all festive, carrying a bundle of most graceful flowers in his hands. And placing himself in my heart, now he would surround his head with those flowers, now he would hold them in his hands, amusing and delighting his whole self. While he was celebrating with these flowers, and it seemed he had made a great gain, he turned to me and told me, "My beloved, this morning I have come to place in order all virtues in your heart. The other virtues may remain separate from one another, but charity binds and orders everything. Here is what I want to do in you, to order charity." I said to him, "My soul and only good, how can you do this, since I am so bad and full of defects and imperfections? If charity is order, aren't these defects and sins disorder that keeps my soul all messy and upside down?" And Jesus, "I will purify everything, and charity will put everything in order. Besides, when I let a soul participate in the pains of my passion, there cannot be grave sins, at most some venial involuntary defects, but my love, being fire, will consume everything that is imperfect in your soul." So it seemed that Jesus purified me and ordered all of me. Then he poured as though a rivulet of honey from his heart into mine, and with that honey he watered all of my interior in such a way that everything that was in me remained orderly, united with the mark of charity. After this, I felt I was going out of myself into the vault of the heavens together with my loving Jesus. It seemed that everything was in feast, heaven, earth, and purgatory. All were inundated with a new joy and jubilation. Many souls were going out of purgatory and like bolts of lightning reached heaven in order to be present at the feast of our Queen Mama. I too pushed myself through that immense crowd of people, angels, saints, and souls from purgatory, which already occupied that new heaven. It was so immense. The heavens that we see compared to that one seemed a little hole to me, more so since I had the obedience of the confessor. But as I went about looking, I could see nothing but a most refulgent sun spreading its rays, which penetrated through me in such a way as to make me become like crystal, so much so that my little spots appeared very clearly, as well as the infinite distance that exists between creator and creature. More so, since each one of those rays had its imprint. Some delineated the sanctity of God, some the purity, some the power, some the wisdom, and all the other virtues and attributes of God. So in seeing her nothingness, her miseries and her poverty, the soul would feel annihilated, and instead of looking, she would fall down, her face to the ground, before the eternal sun, which no one can face. But what is more, in order to see the feast of our Queen Mama, one had to look from within that sun. So much did the Most Holy Virgin appear to be immersed in God. In fact, in looking from other points, one could see nothing. Now, while I was in this state of annihilation before the divine sun, baby Jesus, being held in the arms of the Queen Mama, told me, "Our Mama is in heaven. To you, I give the office of acting as my Mama on earth. And since my life is continuously subject to scorns, to poverty, to pains, to the abandonment of men, and my Mama, while being on earth, was my faithful companion in all of these pains, not only this, but she tried to relieve me in everything as much as her strengths were capable of. You too, acting as my mother, will keep me faithful company in all of my pains, suffering in my place as much as you can. And where you cannot reach, you will try to give me at least a refreshment. Know, however, that I want you all intent on me. I will be jealous even of your breath if you do not do it for me. And when I see that you are not all intent on contenting me, I will give you no peace and no rest. After this, I began to act as his mamma, but oh, how much attention was needed to make him content. To see him content, one could not even take a glance at any other place. Now he wanted to sleep, now he wanted to drink, now he wanted to be cheered with caresses, and I had to be ready for anything he wanted. Now he would say, "My mamma, my head is hurting. Oh, please relieve me." And immediately I would check his head and find some thorns. I would remove them, and placing my arms beneath his head, I would make him rest. While I would make him rest, all of a sudden he would get up and say, "I feel a weight and a suffering at my heart to the point that I feel I am dying. Take a look at what is in there." And observing the interior of his heart, I found all the instruments of the passion. I removed them one by one, and I placed them in my heart. Then, seeing him relieved, I began to caress him and kiss him, and I said to him, "My soul and only treasure, you didn't even let me watch the feast of our Queen Mamma, or listen to the first canticles that the angels and saints sang as she entered paradise." And Jesus, the first canticle that they sang to my mamma was the Hail Mary, because in the Hail Mary there are the most beautiful praises, the greatest honours, and the joy which she felt in being made Mother of God is renewed. Therefore, let us recite it together to honour her. And when you come to paradise, I will let you find it as if you had recited it together with the angels and the saints for the first time in heaven. So we recited the first part of the Hail Mary together. Oh, how tender and moving it was to hail our most holy mamma together with her beloved Son. Each word he said carried an immense light through which one could comprehend many things about the Most Holy Virgin. But who can say them all, especially because of my inability? Therefore, I let them pass in silence. End of the reading.
The 15th of August, 1904, Volume 6. Melancholy is to the soul as winter to the plants. The triumph of the church is not far. This morning I felt all oppressed with a melancholy that filled my whole soul. It seemed that blessed Jesus did not let me struggle too much, and on seeing me so oppressed, he told me, "My daughter, why this melancholy? Don't you know that melancholy is to the soul as winter to the plants, as it strips them of the leaves and prevents them from producing flowers and fruits? So much so that, if the gaiety of spring and of heat did not come, the poor plants would remain incapacitated and would end up withering. Such is melancholy for the soul. It strips her of divine freshness, which is like rain that makes the virtues turn all green again. It renders her incapable of doing good. And if she does good, she does it with difficulty and almost out of necessity, not out of virtue. It prevents her from growing in grace. And if she does not stir herself with a holy gaiety, which is spring rain that gives development to the plants in a very short time, she will end up withering in good. Now, while he was saying this, in one flash I saw the whole church, the wars which the religious must go through, and which they must receive from others, and wars among societies. There seemed to be a general uproar. It also seemed that the Holy Father would make use of very few religious people, both for bringing the state of the church, the priests and others to good order, and for the society in this state of turmoils. Now, while I was seeing this, blessed Jesus told me, "Do you think that the triumph of the church is far?" And I, "Yes, indeed. Who can put order in so many things that are messed up?" And he, "On the contrary, I tell you that it is near. It makes a clash, but a strong one, and therefore I will permit everything together among religious and secular, so as to shorten the time. And in the midst of this clash, all of big chaos, there will be a good and orderly clash, but in such a state of mortification that men will see themselves as lost. However, I will give them so much grace and light that they may recognize what is evil and embrace the truth, making you suffer also for this purpose. If with all this they do not listen to me, then I will take you to heaven, and things will happen even more gravely and will drag on a little bit longer before the longed for triumph. End of the reading.
15th of August, 1914, Volume 11. Fusing oneself in Jesus in order to relieve him from his pain for the sins of creatures. As I was in my usual state, my always adorable Jesus came in a different way from the usual one which he has had with me during this period of my life. That is to say, if he comes at all, it is just for a little while, flashing by, and with almost total cessation of the sufferings which he used to communicate to me when he came. Only his holy volition is what compensates for everything. So this morning he came and stayed for several hours, but in a state that would make stones cry. He had pain everywhere, and he wanted to be soothed in each part of his most holy humanity. It seemed that, had he not received relief, he would have reduced the world to a heap of rubble. It seemed that he didn't want to go in order not to see the slaughters and the grave sights of the world, which almost forced him to do even worse things. I squeezed him to myself, and wanting to relieve him, I fused myself in his intelligence to be able to place myself in all the intellects of creatures and offer a good thought for each evil thought, in order to repair and relieve all the offended thoughts of Jesus. In the same way, I fused myself in his desires to be present in all the evil desires of creatures, in order to place my good desire and soothe the offended desires of Jesus, and so on with all the rest. Then, after I relieved him part by part, he left as if he felt cheered up. End of the reading.
The 15th of August, 1922, Volume 14. The acts of Jesus and those of the Most Holy Virgin in the Divine Will. Finding myself in my usual state, I was abandoning myself in the arms of the most holy will of God, and my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, in my will, you will find not only all of the acts that my humanity did, in which I intertwined all creatures together, but you will also find all the acts that my dear Mama did, which, weaving with mine, formed one single act. As soon as I was conceived in her womb, she began the weaving with my acts. And since my humanity had no other life, no other food, and no other purpose but the will of my Father alone, which flowing everywhere made me act of each creature, so as to give to the Father the rights as creator on the part of creatures, and to give myself as life to all creatures. In the same way as she began intertwining with me, she too gave back to the Father his rights as creator in the name of all, and gave herself to all creatures. Therefore all creatures received, together with my acts, the acts of my Mama as life. Now in heaven she embraces all the glory of each creature. My will gives her such glory on the part of each creature that there is no glory which she does not contain, and no glory which does not descend from her. And since she wove her works, her love, her pains, etc. with me, now in heaven she is so confused with as much glory as were the weaving she did in my will. This is why she surpasses everything, embraces everything, and flows in everything. This is what it means to live in my will. My beloved Mama couldn't have never received so much glory if all of her acts had not flown in my will, acts which constitute her queen and crown of all. Now I want you in my will, so that the weaving may not be between two, but among three. My will wants to expand in order to find all creatures together in one creature. Do you see the great good that will come to you? How much glory you will give me and how much good you will do to all? End of the reading.
15th of August, 1925, Volume 18. All created things run toward man. The Feast of the Assumption should be called Feast of the Divine Will. I continued to fuse myself in the holy divine volition, to requite my Jesus with my little love for everything he has done for mankind in creation. And my beloved Jesus, moving in my interior, in order to give more value to my little love, did what I was doing together with me. Meanwhile, he told me, "My daughter, all created things were made for man, and all of them run toward man. They have no feet, but they walk. They all have motion, either to find him or to be found. The light of the sun departs from the height of the heavens in order to find the creature, illuminate him, and warm him. The water walks in order to reach even into the human bowels, to quench his thirst and to refresh him. The plant, the seed, walks, rips the earth, and forms its fruit to give itself to man. There is not one created thing which does not have a step, a motion toward the one to whom the eternal Maker had directed it in its creation. My will maintains the order, the harmony, and keeps them all on their way toward the creatures. So it is my will that walks constantly toward the creature within created things. It never stops. It is all motion toward the one whom it loves so much. Yet who says a thank you to my will, which brings him the light of the sun, the water for drinking in order to quench his thirst, the bread to satisfy his hunger, the fruit, the flour to cheer him, and many other things which it brings to him to make him happy? Is it not right that since my will does everything for man, man should do everything to fulfill my will? Oh, if you knew the feast that my will makes in created things, when it walks to and serves one who fulfills my will operating and fulfilled in the creature, and my will operating in created things, kiss each other as they meet. They harmonize, they love each other, and form the hymn of adoration for their Creator and the greatest portent of all creation. Created things feel honored when they serve a creature who is animated by that same will which forms their very life. On the other hand, my will takes the attitude of sorrow in those same created things when it has to serve one who does not fulfill my will. This is why it happens that many times created things place themselves against man. They strike him, they chastise him, because they become superior to man, as they keep intact within themselves that divine will by which they were animated from the very beginning of their creation, while man has descended down below, for he does not keep the will of his Creator within himself. After this, I began to think about the feast of my celestial Mama assumed into heaven, and my sweet Jesus, with a tender and moving tone, added, "My daughter, the true name of this feast should be Feast of the Divine Will. It was the human will that closed heaven, broke the bonds with its Creator, made miseries and sorrows into the field, and put an end to the feast that the creature was to enjoy in heaven. Now this creature, Queen of all, by doing the will of the Eternal One always and in everything, even more it can be said that her life was divine will alone, opened the heavens, bound herself to the Eternal One, and restored in heaven the feasts with the creature, Every act she did in the supreme will was a feast that she started in heaven. It was sons that she formed to adorn this feast. It was melodies that she sent to delight the celestial Jerusalem. So the true cause of this feast is the eternal will operating and fulfilled in my celestial Mama. It operated such prodigies in her as to astonish heaven and earth, chain the eternal one with indissoluble bonds of love, and capture the word even into her womb. The very angels, enraptured, repeated among themselves, "From where comes so much glory, so much honor, such greatness and prodigies never before seen in this excelling creature? Yet it is from the exile that she is coming." Astonished, they recognized the will of their Creator as life operating in her. And trembling, they said, "Holy, holy, holy, honor and glory to the will of our sovereign Lord, and glory and thrice holy, she who let this supreme will operate." So it is my will that more than anything was and is celebrated on the day of the Assumption into heaven of my most holy mother. It was my will alone that made her ascend so high as to distinguish her among all. Everything she would have been as nothing had she not possessed the prodigy of my will. It was my will that gave her divine fecundity and made her the mother of the Word. It was my will that made her see and embrace all creatures together, becoming the mother of all and loving all with a love of divine maternity. And making her the queen of all, it made her rule and dominate. On that day, my will received the first honors, the glory, and the abundant fruit of its work in creation, and it began its feast, which it never interrupts, for the glorification of its operating in my beloved mother. And even though heaven was opened by me, and many saints were already in possession of the celestial fatherland when the celestial queen was assumed into heaven, however, she herself was the primary cause, having fulfilled the supreme will in everything. And therefore we waited for she who had honored it so much and contained the true prodigy of the most holy will to make the first feast of the supreme volition. Oh, how the whole of heaven magnified, blessed, and praised the eternal will upon seeing this sublime queen enter the imperium in the midst of the celestial court, all circumfused by the eternal Son of the supreme volition. They saw her all studded with the power of the supreme fiat. There had been not even a heartbeat in her which did not have this fiat impressed on it. And astonished, they looked at her and said to her, "Ascend, ascend higher. It is right that she who so much honored the supreme fiat, and through whom we find ourselves in the celestial fatherland, have the highest throne and be our queen. And the greatest honor that my mama received was to see the divine will glorified." End of the reading.
All to Jesus I surrender, all to Him I freely give. I will ever love and trust Him, in His presence daily live. I surrender all. I surrender all to Thee, my blessed Saviour.
The 15th of August 1927, Volume 22. How all created things possess the unity of the divine will. Difference between the test of Adam and that of Abraham. I was going around through the whole creation according to my usual way, to unite myself to the acts of the supreme will that it exercises in it. And my always lovable Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, all created things possess the unity of my divine fiat. While it is divided into many acts, these acts are bound together and inseparable from one another in the unity of the same divine will. Look at the sun. Its light is an act distinct from the other created things, but its light binds all. It invests the earth and binds it with its light, and the earth binds itself to it, drinks in large gulps from the fount of light, receives its effects, its heat, its ardent kisses, and forms one single act with the sun. The light invests the air and becomes inseparable from it. It invests the water, and the water plunges into the light, and they bind themselves to each other in their unity. In sum, since one is the will that dominates them, all created things are so bound among themselves as to become inseparable, and one could not be without the other. Now, the soul who lives in my divine fiat possesses the unity of it, and therefore she is inseparable from all the acts that the unity of my will issues. The unity of it binds her to God, and she gives me the glory of the divine operating. It binds her to the angels and to the saints, and she gives me the angelic glory and that of the saints. It binds her to all creation, and she gives me the glory of the heavens, of the sun, of the sea, in sum of everything in which my will operates. She is inseparable from it and forms her unity with it. Therefore, only one who lives in my will can give me the love, the glory of all creation and of all redemption. There is not one act of it from which the soul is separated. The other creatures might say it with words, but only one who lives in my volition possesses the deeds. Then I continued my round in the supreme volition. And since I had first offered the first acts of Adam when he possessed the unity with the supreme will, so that I too might unite myself to those perfect acts that he did at the beginning of creation. And then I had moved on to unite myself with the heroism of Abraham, and I thought to myself, what divine wisdom! Of Adam, it is only said that he was the first man created by God, that he sinned and cast the human family into the maze of evils, and then nothing else is said about him in the many years he lived. Could our Lord not return to make some other test and ask of him some other sacrifice in order to test his faithfulness? And while Adam is put into oblivion, he calls Abraham, and after testing him and finding him faithful, he puts him on display, makes him head of the generations, and he is spoken about with so much glory and honour. Now, while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, my daughter, these are the dispositions of my infinite wisdom. It is my usual way that when I ask of the creature a small sacrifice for her good and ungrateful she denies it to me, I no longer want to trust her. I dismiss my designs to raise her to great things, and I leave her like a creature put into oblivion that no one points to because of either great works or heroism, whether for God, for herself, or for the peoples. Then you must distinguish what I wanted from Adam, the literal sacrifice of depriving himself of a fruit, and it was not granted to me. How could I trust him and ask of him a greater sacrifice? On the other hand, I did not ask of Abraham a fruit as sacrifice, but first I asked him to go into a foreign land in which he was not born, and he promptly obeyed me. And then I wanted to trust him more. I lavished grace upon him. And I asked of him the sacrifice of his only son, whom he loved more than himself, and he promptly sacrificed him to me. From this, I knew he was up to it, and I could trust him. I could entrust everything to him. It can be said that he was the first repairer to whom the sceptre of the future Messiah was entrusted, and therefore I raised him to head of the generations, to God's great honour, as well as his own and of the peoples. The same happens in all creatures. It is my usual way to ask for small sacrifices, depriving oneself of a pleasure, of a desire, of a small interest, of a vanity, or detaching oneself from something that seems to do one no harm. These small tests serve as little shelves on which to place the great capital of my grace in order to dispose him to accept greater sacrifices. And when the soul is faithful to me in the small tests, then I abound in grace and ask for greater sacrifices, so as to be able to abound yet more in giving. And I make of her a portent of sanctity. How many sanctities begin from a small sacrifice, and how many, after denying me a small sacrifice, as it seemed to them that it was something of no importance, have remained scrawny in good, cretinous in comprehending it, weak in walking on the way that leads to heaven. Poor ones, they can be seen crawling and licking the earth in a way that arouses pity. Therefore, my daughter, it takes greater attention to small sacrifices than to great ones, because the small ones are the strength of the great, dispose God to give grace and the soul to receive it. End of the reading.
The 15th of August, 1928, volume 24. The living in the divine fiat is communalism between creator and creature. The Virgin, her insuperable glory, the sanctity and the divine will known in heaven. My abandonment in the fiat is continuous. It seems to me that it wants me in all of its acts, either as actor together with it, or at least as spectator of what it does. In fact, since the eternal volition possesses the incessant act, its nature is to always act, never ceasing to operate. And since I am a little child, it is content with keeping me either in one way or in the other, as long as I remain with it. So, continuing my round through the whole creation, I thought to myself, is it necessary? Does Jesus really want that I go around everywhere? And my beloved Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, to live in my divine will is to let oneself be found by God in each created thing, so that the Supreme Being may find in all of his works her whom he loved, and for love of whom he called from nothing and created so many varieties of beautiful and marvelous works. Not finding you in each of his works, he would lack the echo of your love, of your gratitude, and would be as though without you in those works in which you would not go around, as if he had not done them for you. While our purpose in calling you to live in our divine will is precisely this, for us to find you in our works, and for you to find us in each created thing, you giving us your little love, we giving you the great love we had in creating so many things, and uniting your love and ours together to form one single love, so as to be able to say how much the little daughter of our divine will loves us. Otherwise, our love and our works would remain isolated and without the company of her for whom we created everything, while the living in the divine will is communalism between creator and creature, and becoming inseparable. Wherever one is, the other is as well, and the creature finds her little place in everything that God does. Don't you want to find your little place in all the works of creation and redemption? Therefore, continue your flight and let yourself be carried in the arms of my fiat. It will take care of placing the little newborn in each of its works. After this, I was thinking about and accompanying the sovereign queen when she was assumed into heaven, and my sweet Jesus moving in my interior, as though singing the praises of his celestial mother, told me, "My daughter, the glory of the Mama of heaven is insuperable. No one else in the celestial regions possesses seas of graces, of light, seas of beauty and of sanctity, seas of power, of science and of love. And what is more, she possesses these seas within the endless sea of her Creator. The other inhabitants of the blessed fatherland possess at most some little rivulets, some little drops, some little fountains. She is the only one because she alone lived life in the divine fiat. Never did the human volition take place in her. Her life was all of divine will, and by virtue of it, she centralized all creatures within herself, conceiving them in her maternal heart and bilocating her son Jesus as many times to give him to each creature whom she had conceived within her virginal heart. This is why her maternity is extended to all, and all can boast and say, "The mother of Jesus is my mother," and this mother so sweet, lovable, loving, gives her beloved Son to each one of us as pledge of her maternal love. Only my will could give her this virtue of conceiving all creatures as her children and of multiplying her Jesus so many times for as many children as she had. Now in heaven, the height of the sovereign mother, possessing her seas, does nothing but raise highest waves of light, of sanctity, of love, etc., unloading them over the throne of the Supreme Being, who, so as not to be surpassed by her love, having his own sea more extensive and more deep, forms his own waves higher from beneath the seas of the Virgin Queen and pours them upon her. And she prepares more waves, and God yet more, in such a way that the whole of heaven remains flooded by these waves of light, of beauties, of love, and the like, so much so that all take part in them and enjoy. And in seeing that they, that is, the blessed, cannot form these waves because they do not possess seas, they comprehend that if their mother and queen possesses all this, it is because she formed her life and sanctity in the divine will. So in the Virgin, the saints know what sanctity of divine will in the creature means, and therefore they long for more creatures to bring these seas into the celestial fatherland, so as to see more waves being formed, enchanting and of greater enjoyment for them. The earth does not yet know the sanctity of my will, and this is why I so much yearn to make it known. But it is well known to heaven, because there is sovereign queen who, by merely seeing her, makes herself revealer of the sanctity of my fiat. So by virtue of it, she was portent of graces on earth for herself and for the whole human family, and she is portent of glory in the celestial fatherland, nor can any other creature be said to be similar to her. End of the reading.
The 15th of August, 1930, volume 28. How the life of the sovereign queen was formed in the divine Son. I was thinking about my celestial mama in the act when she was assumed into heaven and was offering my little acts done in the divine fiat to give her my homages, my praises for her glory and honour. But while I was doing this, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, the glory, the greatness, the power of my celestial mama in our fatherland is insuperable. And do you know why? Her life on earth was lived inside our divine Son. She never went out from within the abode of her Creator. She knew nothing else but our will alone. She loved nothing else but our interests. She asked for nothing else but our glory. It can be said that she formed the Son of her life within the Son of her Creator. So whoever wants to find her in the celestial dwelling must come into our sun, where the sovereign queen, having formed her sun, spreads her maternal rays for the good of all, and blazes with such beauty as to enrapture the whole of heaven, all feeling twice as happy for having a mother so holy and a queen so glorious and powerful. The Virgin is the first daughter and the only one who possesses her Creator. And she is the only one to have lived life in the Son of the Supreme Being. And since she drew her life from this eternal Son, it is no wonder that having lived of light, she formed her most refulgent sun that gladdens the whole celestial court. This is precisely what it means to live in my divine will, to live of light, and to form one's life within our own sun. This was the purpose of creation, to have the creatures created by us, our beloved children, within our own abode, to nourish them with our own foods, to clothe them with royal garments, and to let them enjoy our own goods. What terrestrial father and mother think of putting out of their home the birth of their womb, their dear children, and of not giving their inheritance to their own children? No one, I believe. On the contrary, how many sacrifices do they not make in order to render their children rich and happy? If a terrestrial father and a mother teach this, much more so does the celestial Father. He wanted and loved his children to remain in his home, so as to keep them around himself, to delight with them, and keep them as the crown of his creative hands. But man, ungrateful, abandoned our home, refused our goods, and contented himself with going wandering, living in the darkness of his human will. End of the reading.
The 15th of August, 1937, Volume 35, The Empire of the Acts Done in the Divine Will. God is at the head of the acts of the soul who lives in it. My flight continues in the divine volition, but its surprises are always new, invested by such love as to remain enraptured. With the soul overflowing with such joy that one would want to remain hidden in it and never leave. O adorable will, how I wish that all knew you, loved you, and would let you reign, allowing themselves to be caught in your net of love. I was thinking this when my sweet Jesus, visiting my soul, all goodness, told me, little daughter of my will, the surprises, the novelties, the secrets, and the attractions of my will are innumerable. Whoever enters it remains renewed and magnetized to the extent that he doesn't want to leave anymore. He feels its investing divine empire and the celestial balm which, changing its nature, makes him rise again to new life. Now you must know that my divine will gives so much power to the creature that as she does her most tiny acts, she feels its empire. If she loves, she feels the empire of its love. If she speaks, she feels its creative strength. If she works, she feels the empire and the virtue of its works crowding all around her, which, ruling in her, will, with her own empire, bring that will to every heart to make it rule and dominate each of them. Our will feels its own empire in the act of the creature, and it feels forced to give what she wants in that act. If she wants to love, with her act she makes us be loved and obtains love for us. If she wants our will to reign, with her own empire she brings us to the point of praying that all may receive it. One act in our will never stops. It says to us, I am your act. You must give me what I want. One act, one can say that it takes control over our power, duplicating it, multiplying it. The creature, though beseeching, does not ask, but takes whatever her act wants. More so, since in our will we always want no act dissimilar from our own. Therefore, we let ourselves be ruled and dominated. Then Jesus remained silent. I cannot express what I felt. My mind was so magnetized by his words and so invested by his empire that I wanted to give my life for everyone to know it. Then my beloved Jesus continued, "My daughter, there's nothing to be surprised about. All that I am telling you is pure truth. My will is all and can do all. Not to put in our same conditions one who lives in our will is not of our supreme being. The creature, who at the most can see us in what is natural, once living in our will, recognizes herself as the grace, participation, and expression of our love and will. And this is how my will wants the creature to be. Therefore, we want her to live in our volition so that her acts and ours may be fused together and may resonate with one single sound, one single value, one single love. We neither can nor do we want to resist one of our acts. Further, you must know that living in our will is unity to the extent that if the creature loves, God is always at the head of her love. So his love and her love are one single love. If the creature thinks, God is at the head of her thoughts. If she speaks, God is the source of her words. If she works, God is the prime actor operating in her works. If she walks, God leads her steps. To live in my will is nothing other than the life of the creature in God and the life of God within her. It is impossible for us to leave our love, our power, and our acts apart from the soul who lives in our will. If the will is one, all the rest comes by itself. Unity of love, unity of works, unity of everything. This is why living in our divine fiat is the prodigy of the greatest prodigies, a prodigy never before seen and never before heard. We wanted to do this prodigy that only a God could perform in the creature because we could no longer contain our exuberant love. But the creature, ungrateful, did not accept. However, we haven't changed our will. Although our love has been hindered and repressed, making us fidgety, we will use such excesses of love, such industries and stratagems, that we will obtain the intent that our will be one with the creature. End of the reading.
The 15th of August, 1938, Volume 36. The 15th of August, 1938, Volume 36. The Feast of Assumption is the most beautiful, the most sublime feast. It is the feast of the divine will operating in the Heavenly Queen. While my mind was swimming in the sea of the divine will, I stopped at the act in which my mother and Queen was assumed into heaven. How many wonders, how many enrapturing surprises of love. And my sweet Jesus, as if he felt the need to speak about his celestial mama, all festive told me, "My blessed daughter, today is the feast of the Assumption. This is the most beautiful, the most sublime, the greatest feast in which we remain glorified, loved, and honoured the most. Heaven and earth run invested with an unusual joy never before felt. The angels and saints feel as if invested with new joys and new happiness, and they all praise with new songs the sovereign Queen who in her empire rules over all, giving joy to all. Today is the feast of feasts, the unique one, the new one, which was never repeated again. Today, the day of the Assumption, celebrated for the first time the divine will operating in the sovereign Queen and Lady. The marvels are enchanting in each of her smallest acts, even in her breathing, in her motion. Many of our divine lives can be seen flowing in her act, as many kings that more than bright suns inundate, surround, and embellish her, making her so beautiful as to form the enchantment of the celestial regions. Do you think it's nothing that each one of her breaths, motions, works, and pains were filled with many of our divine lives? This is exactly the great prodigy of my will operating in the creature to form a divine life, for each time it could enter the motion and the acts of the creature. Then, since my fiat possesses the virtue of bilocation and repetition, doing again and again without ceasing everything she does, so the great lady feels these divine lives multiplied within herself that do nothing other than further extend her seas of love, beauty, power, and infinite wisdom. You must know that the divine lives she possesses are so great and so many that upon entering heaven, they crowded the whole celestial region, and being impossible to contain them, they filled the whole creation as well. Therefore, there is no place where her seas of love and power do not flow, along with the many of our lives, of which she is possessor and queen. We can say that she dominates us and we dominate her. By clothing herself with our immensity, power, and love, she populated all our attributes with her acts and with the many of our divine lives that she had conquered. Therefore, from every place and everywhere, we feel ourselves being loved and glorified, inside and outside of ourselves, from within all created things, in the most remote hiding places, by this celestial creature and by those same divine lives that our fiat formed in her. O power of our will, only you can do such prodigies to make us loved and glorified as we deserve and want, to the extent of creating many of our lives in the one who lets you dominate. This is why she can give her God to all, because she possesses him. Even more, when she sees a creature disposed to receive our will, without losing one of our divine lives, she has the virtue of reproducing from within these divine lives that she possesses yet another of our divine lives to give to whomever she wants. The Virgin Queen is a continuous prodigy. What she did on earth, she continues in heaven. Because when the divine will operates, both in the creature and in ourselves, her acts never end, and while remaining in it, they can be given to all. Does the sun, perhaps, cease to give its light to the human generation because it has given too much of it? Not at all. Even if it has given much, it is always rich in its light and does not lose a single drop of it. She possesses our operating will. Therefore, the glory of this queen is insuperable, because she possesses our operating will that has the virtue of forming in the creature eternal and infinite acts. She loves us always and unceasingly with our lives that she possesses. She loves us with our own love. She loves us everywhere. Her love fills heaven and earth and runs to pour itself inside our divine womb. And we love her so much that we cannot live without loving her. While in loving us, she loves all, making everyone love us. How could we resist and not give her anything she wants? It is our own will that asks for what she wants, tying us with its eternal bonds so that we can refuse her nothing. This is why the Feast of the Assumption is the most beautiful one. It is the feast of my will operating in this great lady, making her so rich and beautiful that the heavens cannot contain her. Even the angels remain speechless and don't know how to describe what my will does in the creature. After this, while my mind remains stupefied in thinking about the great prodigies that the divine fiat worked and continues to work in the celestial queen? My beloved Jesus added. My daughter, her beauty is unreachable. It enchants, it charms, it conquers. Her love is such that she offers herself to all, loving all, leaving behind her seas of love. She can be called Queen of Love, Winner of Love, because she loved much, and through love she won her God. You must know that by doing his will, man broke the bonds with his Creator and with all created things. By the power of our fiat that she possessed, this heavenly queen tied her Creator to the creatures, tied all beings together, united them, put them back in order with her, and with her love gave new life to the human generations. Her love was so great as to cover and hide inside its seas weaknesses, evils, sins, the creatures themselves. Oh, if this Holy Virgin did not possess so much love, it would be difficult for us to look at the earth. Only her love makes us look at it. But we want to give our will to reign in the middle of the creatures because she wants it so. She wants her children what she possesses. And by love, she will win us and her children. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed and holy Feast of the Assumption. See you tomorrow.